Welcome to The Craft Service Table, the podcast where we talk about films, television, art, and entertainment from the perspective of the people who make them. I'm your host, Howard, and joining me today is filmmaker, educator, author, and co-founder of the Green Film School Alliance. He has worked in visual effects and editorial department on features such as Inception, Dark Knight Rises, Terminator 3, Rise of the Machines, The Aviator, and James Cameron 3D documentary, Aliens of the Deep. And we are here to celebrate the release of his new book, Green Filmmaking, A Guide to Sustainable Movie Production. He is also one of my film school professors. It's Ken Hayward. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Hi,
How
thanks.
you doing?
Good, real good.
It's been a while since I've seen you last time, I feel like, but also not that long ago.
Yeah, and we've exchanged some emails about script supervising and some other things.
Right.
So you've been on my mind.
Well, I'm glad I've been on your mind. Clearly, you've been on my mind too. And last time I saw you, it was at the showcase, a couple months ago. Mm-hmm. And I mentioned to you about this podcast, potentially having you on as a guest. I got a little busy, but...
As do we all. I did too.
Yes, but we are back, keeping that promise, and I'm happy to have you here as a guest today.
Well, it's great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
For sure.
I hope I have something interesting to say.
Of course you do. You have, but congratulations on the book. That's kind of what we're here for today, to talk about your book, talk about your relationship with film production, with teaching, and also sustainability in film production, which seems to be your main focus right now.
It's a main interest right now for sure, and I think it's really important, and it's having a bit of a moment too. So
yeah. So before we get into everything, I would like to ask you, what's your favorite craft service item, either on set or in office or when you're writing? What's the thing that you go for?
Oh yeah, those are three totally different animals there. On set. We had a craft service person when I worked at New Deal Studios that did hard-boiled eggs. And for some reason that was just like super satisfying.
Right.
And, a little bit of salt, a little pepper. That was great. And
yes.
And I remember she was amazed too that like, I just make eggs. It's like not a big deal, and people are like really into them.
That's about the most healthy craft service item that I feel like anyone would like. Yeah, I like a hard-boiled egg with salt and pepper.
But they also that there was another one I remember when I was on, I think, some Lifetime TV shows. In post, they would bring by these like little sherbets, and they had this coconut one that came in a little coconut. Half of a coconut.
No way.
Yeah, it was great.
In post?
Yeah. Well, we were next to set, so that was kind of, sometimes we got to go and get craft service.
That's some bougie. How much is your budget?
I know, right? Well, I have a feeling they might have been little Costco items, but the cool thing was if you got two of the coconuts, one the day before and then one the next day, then you could do the...
Interesting.
You like the little horse foley.
Yeah, right. I'm sure you annoyed a lot of coworkers in the office.
Yeah. It was very annoying, but very fun.
Oh, what do you think is the role for these snacks when you're working? Like, does it help your creative process, or energizes you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, I think, the snacks and craft service is like, I mean, not only is it maybe I'm a little bit peckish, but a lot of it is, moving, walking around, if you're in front of your workstation, editing, or if you're in front of your, laptop doing scripty or whatever it is. Yeah. Just being able to like get up and go to the table is like, it's stimulating. They're like something, I did a little film about walking across Los Angeles, and there's something stimulating about like just the act of engaging, like going through your environment.
Right, for sure.
And walking is going through your environment, and on its surface, that's not a big deal, but like, there's a lot there, man. Like engaging with your world and seeing people and
being alive again.
Yeah. And maybe like literally having a different perspective on, even on your landscape, wherever you are, just standing up and seeing things differently.
Yes.
There's like there's a lot of like metaphorical stuff going on there.
Right.
But yeah, so yeah, whatever. Getting your sugar rush is important, but also
definitely
like engaging with people and things. And I think it really, I think it stimulates your brain in a different way too, and can help inspire you.
Yeah. I sometimes freelance as an assistant editor at this production company. The snacks they have is dangerous. Like, like when you're so bored, you just want to eat something, and you just don't stop. Those are dangerous for me.
And then that's when you also have to question, like, okay, should I actually bring the snacks back to the workspace?
Yes.
No,
definitely not. Stay in the kitchen. Don't even go to the kitchen by that point. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being a guest here. As we talked about earlier today, we're mainly talking about the book, your relationship with film production and sustainability. But so to start, leading up to that point, I do want to ask you your origin story, kind of your superhero moment. How did you find art in the first place? Why art? Why movies? Yeah, what's your relationship with that?
Oh, that's a good question. Growing up, we didn't watch a lot of movies when I was a kid. I think, my dad just wasn't, that excited about movies, more interested in academic stuff. And my mom's family was kind of, I don't know how you'd explain, like how you describe sort of working class, Depression era family that found it hard to spend money on stuff like that, extra money on things like movies. So we consequently just didn't really see that many movies. But I remember starting to go to see like animation festivals back in some of my first feature films were probably like Star Wars and stuff, and that was like for many people sort of mind-boggling and opened up lots of doors. And I did think about like, wow, how do they do that? And there's behind the scenes a little bit, not as many as there are today, but there was a little bit of behind the scenes back then, and that was super exciting. But I do remember like also seeing these animation festivals in the early 80s, late 70s, like Spike and Mike's, and these claymation festivals. Stan Winston made a bunch of early claymation stuff. There'd be festivals that had strange animations from like Hungary and Poland and faraway places, and those were like blew my mind. That, and you know what else blew my mind was Sesame Street. I have to confess that even before any of that stuff was like, and they used to have these little interstitial animations like in between, the Big Bird sketch and the whatever little short film. They would have these like little animations that were very abstract, like made from iron filings or sand, and it would be maybe just a person walking, and then it'd say like the letter A or something like that. But like the visuals were so abstract and just like completely out of the imagination that I vividly remember those, and there's something about that really like captivated my imagination. So I think that's why I like experimental films as much as I do.
Yes, I was gonna say, because it seems like you kind of grew up. Well, what really sparked your inspiration in the beginning was the animation and the abstract stuff, which I feel like we definitely see a lot in your current work. Like even the one that you just talked about, walking on a street, it's kind of like a stop motion, like picture by picture kind of thing. And you also incorporated a lot of like abstract imagery in your work, it seems like. Yeah.
I think I really love, abstraction and finding things in abstraction and metaphors and stuff. I mean, it's like when you close your eyes, you still see stuff. You see like latent images and like little, I don't know, swirling purple, or there's something there that's in, I feel like that's related to our unconscious and our brains and dreams and things that we think about when we're not really thinking directly or so concretely. Yeah. And I think, I don't know, I just think there's something really important there and beautiful and honest. Yes. That is, I don't want to say it's missing from like narrative Hollywood films, but because there is some there, but I think that it's I don't know. There's something about that intuitive and the dream images and I don't know, the things that happen in your head when you're not paying attention that is really important for narrative and for sparking human imagination.
Right.
So.
Right. And to be able to put that into words or imagery and music, it's I feel like that's what kind of cinema is about, right? I think it's like a combination of all art almost.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, and you just said music. I think that's so so apt. Like, I know you do music, you compose music, and there's something magical about music that like I don't have the language for, that I think is really beautiful, and the way that it can capture emotions in a way that maybe images and writing can't. It's like
absolutely
there's something like so visceral about that, and even just like sometimes I use this example in class, but there's something about like even just like that beat, sort of like the heartbeat and the that's rhythm, that's that's the first thing you heard when you were in your mother's womb, this heartbeat. And there's something like really beautiful about, I don't know, polyrhythms and like all these different kinds of and patterns. And I think language and rhythms and patterns and in a way that's like what makes stories interesting too, was repetition and variation and things that you expect, things that you don't expect. And I kind of feel like they're all related.
Right. Sure. You mentioned earlier that you kind of grew up in at a time where your parents weren't as supportive about it in the arts, and especially back in the days where digital wasn't as popularized as today and everything is shot on film, which makes it more expensive. So now that you're on the flip side, now everything is so digital, everything is so democratized, I would say. How do you see it being different, growing up back then with shooting on 8mm or something, and nowadays where everyone has a camera in their pocket?
That's interesting. That's a really interesting question. I mean, in a way, the question was the same back then. Was like, oh, now that there's so many 8mm cameras around, like, how why? What's special about making movies? Everybody can do it.
Right.
But you're right. To your point, like, certainly not everybody could make them. Certainly not everybody could afford or had that technology or had access to it. And the same goes for today too. But I was lucky enough to have a uncle who had a Super 8 camera, so I could make some stuff with a Super 8 camera. I could do little animations like the animation film festivals that my little brother and I saw. And we spent a lot of time in the basement with clay figures making little animations.
Right.
And that was great on Super 8. And some of them worked really well. Some of them were like total failures because we didn't realize like, oh, this camera doesn't have a through the lens viewfinder. It's a parallax viewfinder. So everything we're seeing through the viewfinder is a different frame than what the camera is seeing because we're so close or whatever. So like, half of our stuff was like out of frame. But, and you don't find out until like a month later when you finish animating single frame and get the film back later.
Wow.
But you learn, and there is something kind of beautiful about comparing your imagination, what you got, to what you get back. It's a little bit like some of the first generation GoPros that didn't have a viewfinder. You put them somewhere and you kind of like guess. Yeah. So there's something cool about that when you see it and you're like, oh wow, hey, that's cool. I did that.
For sure. So you eventually got into visual effects and the editorial department, kind of stemming from your animated background, and also you were listed with credits on Dark Knight Rises, Inception, Iron Man, The Aviator at the New Deal Studios. Can you maybe talk to me a little bit about that and what exactly did you do there?
Oh, sure. Yeah. New Deal was a really fun place to work. Started as Hunter Gratzner Industries. There was another company called the Chandler Group that they were next door to and worked with. And I worked for all three of those companies, plus another couple of companies that were nearby. And I got into that world of visual effects. The first connection was from projection. I was a projectionist in college and in grad school. So that was on my resume. And one of the places that I targeted in my job search after grad school was a visual effects company called the Chandler Group. And they happened to need a projectionist one day. Or they needed a PA, and they saw that I was a projectionist. So they were like, oh yeah, hey, our projectionist is down for the count. Let's bring in that guy. And that's back in the day when a lot of the daily, like you would watch dailies, and you'd watch them on film.
The lost art of dailies.
The lost art of dailies. Right? Yeah. Oh my gosh. And into the visual effects industry, you know, some of the stuff we were doing then, and this was like 90s, some of it was very old school, like we're making fire elements today. And, you know, there would be a flame bar that we'd pump propane into and some pyro people there and a fire marshal. And, you know, you would, okay, let's see, we have a bunch of little controlled bursts we would do today. Okay, and then today we need to do a couple of streams of fire and, you know, whatever. There'd be like a list of these things that they would be shooting to composite digitally later, and it was digitally, although this company used to do it analog in optical printing, like way back in the day, in the 70s. Like they did the original Tron and stuff, these Chandler Group guys. And anyway, they did, so you would have to, I don't know. So anyway, we have like thousands and thousands of feet, you know, an hour of fire elements on film to watch in dailies.
Wow.
And I think a lot of people complained about how boring that was, but I just always thought that was like so fun.
Yeah.
Let's watch smoke for 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And
do you think it comes hand to hand with your animation kind of background?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I can't claim really to be much of an animator. I like it. I have a lot of friends. Well, I went to Cal Arts too. And, you know, although I was familiar with animation and experimented and definitely enjoyed doing it, like there were some way better animators who I met and went to school with. But yeah, I think it is related. Like just that, I don't know, patience of doing weird tasks and being a perfectionist about how to make things look.
Right.
And on projects like Terminator 3, for example, it was fun to, like, I would get to do things like be on the set, and this is all visual effects stage stuff, but we would have a whole, like, oh, here's a mock-up of this hangar that we're going to build, and it's all in miniature, and we're going to, we've got these strings to pull Jeeps to make them go flying and pull some other debris as this Terminator is going to walk through this hangar, and then we'd set up little pyro elements, and it was really about doing previs and figuring out how to make something, you know, if we shoot it at this speed and that speed, what will it look like, and then play it and then film it and play it back at a certain speed, or shoot it or play it on, you know, import it into an Avid and then see how it was going to play, and then and then shoot the elements like physically with miniatures and real pyro. Whereas today, I think, you know, almost nobody would do that stuff physically anymore. But,
well, you said that you've worked as a projectionist kind of right out of college, and also you worked as a projectionist for a couple of years on movies like Terminator 3, as you said, End of Days, another Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, and Looney Tunes, Back in Action.
Oh, yeah.
I was just trying to learn exactly what a projectionist does. Can you maybe enlighten me with that?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I guess there aren't. I mean, well, I also worked in LACMA at the LA County Museum of Art, just like projecting feature films too, like on film. And that's sort of that's the original projectionist, was somebody responsible for getting, the image, whatever it is, digital video, old school analog video, onto the screen. Yeah. And so at that job, it could be a Bill Viola art film video, or it could be we screened a lot of feature films, whether they were David Lynch feature films or Preston Sturges feature films, like, you know, old school, new school. And, you know, the art of projection, it's a little bit like the movie Fight Club, where you see like you have to inspect the physical film, make sure it's not broken, or if it is, how to repair it, how to put like all 6 reels, it's usually 6 reels, how to project that seamlessly so that you don't have a gap, And whether that means like splicing them all together on a big platter, or whether that means running them on one projector, and then as one is running out, you're starting the next projector with the next reel and going back and forth. It's a skill that requires a little preparation and know-how, and threading those machines in the dark is something, your hands get used to. And
by muscle memory by that point.
Totally. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I just saw, right now we're getting rid of a old projector at school, and I just saw it lying on the floor, and just like the sound of opening up the door and hearing that the clasp and like just touching the sprockets, and like my fingers totally remember how to do that. And, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I always find that position to be so, for lack of a better term, cool. Like you're controlling how people view the stuff on the screen. And I feel like I think at one point I was looking into it because it seems like a very relaxing job. I don't know if that's true or not.
In some ways it is.
In some ways.
Yeah. Every 20 minutes you kind of freak out about like, man, am I going to get this transition right or not?
Well, is there any advice if I were to want to look into that? Where should I start?
Probably art film theaters and stuff, like the new art places that are still projecting in film. Yeah, there aren't that many. My friend Barry Rosen, who's a producer and also master projectionist, he's like, I always felt it was like the last stage in the collaboration of everybody getting that film on the screen. And
right.
There's something to that.
Oh, yeah. And especially in LA, there's a lot of art theaters. I feel like JJ bring us there all the time, like New Bev. Right. Frida and OC. It's like there's so many different options. Oh yeah.
I haven't been to that one yet. I have to go to that.
Which one, the Frida?
Yeah.
That one was my like community college go-to cinema because I went to Fullerton for community college, and sometimes after school I just drive down to OC a little bit. It's not that far to watch something that I haven't seen on the big screen before.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think there's always something so special watching films.
There's an awesome one in El Segundo too, if you ever get a chance. I get the name wrong. I think it's called the Music Theater. But it's not like a historic theater that's all fancified or anything. But they do the inside looks like a regular old theater, and they have a pipe organ and an organist, and they do lots of times old silent movies, and they'll do it with the cartoon and the newsreel and the like sing along with the bouncy ball and everything. It's so cool. Yeah, Serial, Flash Gordon.
Is it the Old Town Music Hall?
Old Town Music Hall.
That's it?
The one, yep.
Nice. Yeah, I'll definitely check that out. I love watching stuff on film because there's textures that you don't get in normal cinema. I feel like, yeah. So was there a specific moment in your career that you realized that you had to transition into teaching? As I said before in the intro, you were my film school professors, and I was just curious what kind of led you to that.
Yeah, I think it was a couple things. I mean, when I was at Cal Arts as a grad student, like I was a TA a couple of times, and that I liked that. I thought that, it did feel like an honor to be asked to be to somebody's TA, or to ask them and have them say yes. Your teachers, like that was kind of cool. But I discovered that I liked that, especially teaching production. That was the first class that I was a TA for, was this like cinematography and production class. But yeah, I discovered that I kind of liked that, and I liked the idea that like all my teachers there at Cal Arts could be filmmaker teachers. So it was a way to have a career and be creative at the same time. So I kind of felt like that was a good model for me. As it turns out, it's a lot harder than I thought.
Right.
At least for me, to be creative and to have time to be creative and to have time to do teaching properly. But yeah, so I started. So the graduate school, I did that, and then did freelancing for a number of years, and then found an opportunity to a friend asked me to like substitute for a class, and I had been thinking about getting back to it, and did it, and that was at Cal State San Bernardino, And then I was like, okay, I think I can do both. And then I did both for a little while. Like, I don't know how I did it, but somehow I was like, I was being like an assistant editor or a visual effects person and taking like an afternoon to teach. I don't know how I got them to,
You survived.
They let me do it somehow. I
Got out of the trenches.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like you're always striving for that creative output. It seems like no matter how busy you get, because I feel like you're always working on something.
I try to, yeah. I mean, I think that's important. I think it's important for human beings to do multiple things.
Yeah.
Like you were just saying, your classmate Leah Everett was saying, like,
Shout out.
Yeah, was saying have a hobby and stuff. Like, that's so true. You know, or you know, rediscover old hobbies or rediscover old interests that never became a hobby. Like, I think that's so important.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I mean, there's some of that in for me in doing creative things, whether it's whatever, writing or yeah, working on short films or painting or whatever, you know, like that stuff. I think you need it as a human being for your brain, or even if it's not, maybe creativity for you is not that. Maybe it's like baking or I don't know, making cutting boards or woodwork or something, like, you know, or I don't know, dancing.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Really, whatever.
Yeah, like that's important. I think we need that. And so that's kind of what it is for me. And I do feel like, I don't know, it's hard. I guess like a lot of people, not everyone, but like a lot of people, I do sometimes find it hard to say, like, I am an artist. But I feel like that. And I feel like I need to create. So,
I mean, what makes an artist, would you say?
Intention, I think. Like,
intention.
Yeah, like if you are, I could go to the light switch and turn the light switch on and off. And if I say that I'm doing a work of art, click, 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 you know, I guess it is.
They're very interesting.
Yeah.
I kind of like that take. Yeah. I realized that you put a lot of emphasis on human connection and kind of the human experiences as a whole, whether through just knowing you as a person and also just through your work too. By teaching, I'm sure you faced a lot of challenge over the years. And one of the things that I do want to highlight is when COVID hit and everything shut down and turned online. And that's kind of when I first got into Cal State Long Beach and had your class and stuff. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you had to face and during that time?
Oh man.
From, professor's perspective.
Dude, that was a big one. That was hard. That was so hard. And you guys were at the tail end of it,
yes,
luckily, because we were able to come back to class eventually.
Yeah.
But at least for your senior projects and stuff. But,
luckily.
Yeah. The folks who were like a year before you just really,
such bad timing.
Breaks my heart. Yeah. And it did at the time too, but you can't, like, that was the hardest thing was like, I was not being able to say, like, you're going to miss the whole experience. Don't like run away, go do something else. I mean, not that would be necessarily the best advice for them, but like we had to stay positive and be like, okay, what we're doing is we're going to reframe the narrative. We're going to go back to basics. We're going to do things in a different way and focus on basics, focus on a different kind of discipline. And to a certain extent, I think that was really true. And we were able to examine some of the bigger issues that I think are like exciting, like what is an image and what is film and what is it for, and having maybe smaller projects helped us focus on important things like juxtaposition of images and what it means to put one image next to another and sound next to that in a way that you can't if you're too excited about, like, I'm on set and I can use a walkie-talkie. Like sometimes you forget when you have a lot of stuff, sometimes you forget the importance of the fundamentals. So in a way, COVID was kind of like going back to that. At least that's how we tried to make it exciting, but it was depressing. I mean, I know my students were all, upset, and we couldn't do so many things like oh, I could just go on for hours about it, but there's so many things we couldn't do. And the hard thing was for me as a teacher to like, okay, I'm not going to talk about what we can't do. I have to frame this in a way that's going to be positive and productive.
Yeah.
And we need a certain amount of like talking and venting about how terrible this is, but we also need to figure out a way to make it work. And some teachers and some students were not able to get out of the negative part of it. So,
I mean, did you receive a lot of pushback, or did the school receive a lot of pushback from that era?
Oh yeah. I mean, we did the best we could, but I totally understood that there were some students, like, I don't know, I'm thinking of one particularly bright student right now who you probably even know, but who really worked hard, and all of their classmates worked really, really hard, but it was just ultimately disappointing that they couldn't. One of the things you think about when you go to film school is like using gear and studio time and lighting and stuff. And, we couldn't be together. So making movies without community and without
defeats the purpose a lot.
Collaboration. Yeah. It was like, it's impossible. Unless you're by yourself with your Super 8 camera in the basement, like me and my brother with your claymation.
Well, I feel like at the time, at least from our class's experience that year, was also, very frustrated that we couldn't really touch any equipment, that we couldn't really have the experience of working with people on set, and we just get stuck in our house and being told, okay, you one-man crew type of thing. Yeah, but I feel like ultimately coming out of that, I think it's also kind of exploring a different corner of filmmaking where you don't have as much resource. And I think that kind of flexes a lot of our creative muscle moving forward, of like make use of everything that we had instead of like grabbing everything, like you said, all these equipment, and then have fun and have a walkie-talkie and feel like, yeah, I'm a filmmaker now, where what's really mattered is kind of like what's in your head and what you can do with what you have.
Yeah. And I think that lesson is so important, and, hopefully people can learn it without having to go through a pandemic, but making something with less, you're always making something with less than you ideally would want, but being really challenged by having less, I think, is so important, so good for your brain. I always think back to like, I don't remember exactly where this was, Burkina Faso, Ouagadougou, West Africa, maybe like Senegal, maybe there was some West African filmmaker.
What happened to Captain Alex?
Oh, I don't know.
Wait, JJ, what's the Captain Alex movie? Who's the guy?
What? Like the director's name?
Yeah.
Nawana IGG.
Oh wow.
Nawana IGG. Yeah, it's from Uganda.
Oh, cool.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not. But I mean, it's probably the same kind of a deal. There's the person I'm thinking of, and I might be confusing two filmmakers, but I'm thinking of like this one dude named Suleiman Cissé and Ousmane Sembène, who's from Senegal. And one of those guys, or maybe both of them, went to do some film school in Russia and came back, and they didn't have gear back in where they were, but they were making, they learned how to make films, and they were making some cool stuff. But they started to teach other people, and they taught them they made like cameras out of wood with like little viewfinders and stuff that was just wood to practice, the art of framing and stuff.
That's beautiful.
Which I thought was so cool.
Love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Like, the one that we were talking about, what's his name? I forgot now.
From Uganda.
From Uganda. He also like just a few people on his crew, and with just a camera and just shooting everything and editing it himself. They're not the greatest masterpieces that you would see, but I think there's something so special about that passion that you see.
Oh,
you have
yeah.
an artist who really wants to create.
There's a great documentary about the film industry in Nigeria where they're just doing that. They're like one take, one take, like wonders of, every shot is one take only, and they make a feature in 2 days or something, and they're super popular, like bootlegs and real cheap low budge stuff, but it's super inspiring just to watch like the process
For
of,
sure.
like, making a lot of stuff and just doing it economically.
So if you can sum up kind of the purpose of film school in a few sentences, how would you frame it? Because you went to film school too.
In a few sentences.
Like, what is it about, really?
Well, I think it's about learning to try things in a framework where it doesn't have like negative consequences to your career or life. Being able to experiment, whether that's trying a new role on set or trying a new concept without fear of like reprisal, like something that you don't have in the world of commerce, where like you can't just like, I'm going to make a 3-hour film about clouds. Okay, but what's the hook? Well, do the clouds get together? Are they, is this animated? Is it a romantic comedy? Is there sex? Like, how can we sell this? Like, in film school, you can try things with no repercussions and learn from them.
Yeah.
That's what I think it's all about. And you get to the benefit of time to study masters who've gone before you or other practitioners who have a completely different worldview than you do.
Yeah. Well, I think it creates a safe space for you to explore yourself really in the filmmaking world.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have a misconception of what film school is about. And now that I've been out of film school for a few years and, gained industry experiences now, and one of the things that I heard the most over the years happens to be one of the things that I want to talk to you about the most is people saying that film schools don't matter. And the conversation around, do you really need it? What is it really for? Is it just a waste of money? So you being an active role in this topic from the professor and the teacher point of view, what do you say to those people who really just solely believe that, I don't need film school. They don't teach you how to use a C-stand or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a great question. Yeah. On the one hand, they're right. You don't need film school to learn how to use a camera. There is the great film school of YouTube
right.
that exists, and a lot of people there to tell you how to use stuff. But, any Joe Schmo that you see their feed on YouTube or TikTok, they have a wide range of motivations for what they're doing, and they're not necessarily about helping you to become a filmmaker. Sometimes it's about selling things. Sometimes it's about their sponsors. Sometimes it's about them being the personality. So what I guess I would say is like, yeah, you're right. You can learn. You don't have to graduate high school to become a famous filmmaker or a good filmmaker, but film school does provide the opportunity of you to explore filmmaking in a way that I don't think you can do anywhere else. And part of it is what you say is the safety, the safe space to try anything, as long as it's not putting any others in danger.
Right.
And the guidance, the box to check if you are putting yourself or others in danger, and, to learn how to, navigate that situation. Yeah. Even in film school, a lot of film students will say things like, oh, dude, I cannot watch anything that's black and white or with subtitles. Nope. That's old. I can't.
It's old.
Yeah. It's not relevant to me. Well, it is. It's like reading a novel, Dostoevsky or James Joyce, or I was just talking about West Africa, Chinua Achebe, like some Aimé Césaire, like Caribbean author. Like there's a lot of beautiful stuff that you're not going to hear about on YouTube.
Yeah.
And just walking around in life. And that's what education is for.
Right.
For bringing you into things that you had never considered or wouldn't have the access to. Maybe another way of saying it, one of my wife's favorite ways of saying it she thought about in college is like sometimes, school is sort of like letting you in on all the jokes all those like inside jokes where like, oh, I didn't get that reference before. Oh, I didn't understand that Simpsons episode before, but now I see that it references Citizen Kane or
Right,
whatever. There's something to that.
I think it's very significant to look back to the people who came before you, to all the work that came before you, I think, because that, you may have this idea, but you don't know someone has already done it 60 years ago and better than you probably. Yeah. And I think, I forgot the entire thing, but Scorsese has a quote of like, study the master or like study the canvas or something like that. Yeah, I think it's really important to learn where all these things come from and they once existed, done by someone who had a lot of passion and probably would do it better, with less resources than you. Yeah.
And some of those filmmakers are the ones that I find really exciting. Like Scorsese loves all kinds of movies and art. Tarantino really loves all kinds of movies and TV. I don't know, Mira Nair is, Indian filmmaker, independent filmmakers made like beautiful things and is aware of like the history of the image and literature and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like, I think that makes for good filmmakers.
Yeah, for sure. One last thing before we get into the sustainability portion of the episode. What does trimming your beard teach you about filmmaking?
That's a good question. I don't know. At some point I had an analogy. I was thinking trimming your beard is more like mowing the lawn. You're you never stop doing it, and you're never finished, and it's always more to do. No, I did that. That's funny that you say that. I did it for an online class during COVID to try and.
I think it was a little before my time, I think.
Was it? Okay.
I wasn't in that class, but I saw it when I was doing research.
That's so funny. Yeah, I did. I decided that in order to like engage people, every week I would change up the beard. And sometimes I did it during class, or sometimes I would do it in between classes. And I usually made some kind of reference to a film or filmmaker.
You were doing this metaphor of montage and like editing a lot like trimming your beard, that I found it fascinating during this COVID era.
That's right. Yeah, that was pretty fun.
Well, you look good. You look good in all of the variations of beards.
Oh, stop. Say it again. No,
right. You look great. All right, let's talk about the sustainability. In film production specifically. That's kind of what we're here for. I have my copy that came in yesterday. It's called Green Filmmaking, A Guide to Sustainable Movie Production. It's a book where you can get it where?
Well, you can get it from the publisher Routledge, but it's also available on Barnes & Noble and Powell's Books and Amazon.
Yeah, go check it out, guys. So what got you into sustainability in film production specifically? Why sustainability in film production in particular?
Well, I guess, making films as a low budget filmmaker, you're always aware of resources and specifically not having enough resources. And then having the opportunity to work on some larger projects, looking at the films that have seemingly unlimited resources, and then throwing it all in a dumpster at the end of the day was like heartbreaking for me. And like, I just could not believe it. My grandmother on the farm in Blythe would be horrified at the amount of waste. When I was teaching and working on big projects at the same time, I would try to set aside like, oh, you're going to throw away all those gels? Can you just put them in this box and I'll bring them to my film students? And like, that's kind of one of the ways that I saw like this idea of waste in film. And but I did also work with a lot of people who politically or whatever in their lives were interested in composting and environmental awareness, or they'd escape to go camping when they weren't filming, or believe in recycling, or they'd clean up their own neighborhoods or whatever. And so seeing that contrast was like kind of shocking to me. Wrapping up a big franchise movie and having to push everything into the dumpster was like, was was a shock.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But I did have employers who also were really kind of leaders in carpooling and recycling, and Shannon Gans and Matt Gratzner and Ian Hunter were all had this great had a great like recycling initiative and carpool initiative when I was at Hunter Gratzner. And yeah, so it was always kind of on my mind. And in class, one year I thought like, all right, well, maybe I'll just put it on my syllabus that you can do this optional assignment of tracking your waste and your recycling. And, if you can make your production more sustainable, we can make a little project about that and get extra credit. And it took a couple of years, but somebody finally bit on that. And, with some guidance, they made this cool little documentary about being sustainable on your film. We made together we had a meeting. This was Jesse Butera and Claudia Vialta, and they made a little documentary about their process after some consulting and some list making of like, hey, what are all the ways we can be sustainable? And their documentary is charming. It's awesome. And Claudia went on to work at sustainability at Sony, which was cool. And then researching that, and through Claudia, I learned that there were more people doing this than I thought were.
Yeah.
Heidi Kinberg now at Warner Brothers, and was also she was working at Sony too. And meeting her and meeting some other teachers like Erica Elson at AFI, we started a conversation about it, and Heidi was really excited about the idea of getting teachers involved. And out of those discussions and Heidi and Erica's conversations, we started the Green Film School Alliance, which is a group of schools that are concerned about sustainability in film and incorporating sustainability practices into production.
So what are those criteria or practices that you talked about, especially in student films, that you try to incorporate it into the syllabus?
Yeah. So, the idea was of my original assignment was like, is there a way that we can be sustainable or more sustainable? And what we kind of came up with was like, yeah, pretty much every department has the ability to do something.
Yes.
Whether it's like, writers using less paper, or, scripty being digital or being on paper. And that sounds pretty cut and dry, but as we're discovering now and getting more sophisticated, I think there's a larger footprint for digital than we expected. But the paperless workflow was definitely part of it. What food can we serve that's going to be also sustainable or not promote a culture of waste? What can we do in terms of fuel use? What can we do in terms of wardrobe? That was kind of the initial idea, was just like, is there a way that even a small production like a student film can help be sustainable, and can we find that? And we did, and that actually, the first group in my class that made a little short film, they entered it into around the same time our sustainability office was offering. The sustainability office on campus was saying, hey, teachers, if you have projects that your students are doing that promote sustainability, we'll have a little showcase and we can show them to everybody and make there'll be prizes. And it was great kind of serendipity that was happening at the same time. And more and more schools have sustainability departments now. But I think this one, led by Holly Fajek and others over there in sustainability, are really engaged with encouraging faculty to put sustainability into curriculum.
Yeah.
So that students can learn, like, hey, engineering students, yeah, you can do a project about conserving water, but hey, dance students, you can do something that has content about conservation and resources, and or use wardrobe in your dance performance that's made from reclaimed materials. And there's a way for every discipline to interact with that idea, which I think is really cool.
For sure. So is this what this book is mainly about? Is it looking at the bigger picture of movie production and kind of informing anyone in the industry that these practices exist and that you can easily implement it into your production? Is that kind of the goal for this book?
Yeah, that's part of it. I mean, that was kind of like my initial entry into the topic was like, yeah, how can we, use less and recycle more? But it's not necessarily, but as I get further into it and as I see what research other people are doing, it's not just about recycling cans and eating vegan food. It's also about stories and content and how our culture has become wasteful and spreads that idea in its stories. When you look at, a movie like, everybody loves Apocalypse Now, but, they spent a lot of time burning rubber tires to make smoke. That was, of course, super polluting. And, they had a huge production that had a lot of waste. If you look at stories, other cultures, maybe like stories of the creation of the world and the stories of coyote from a native culture or something like there's going to be a totally different like footprint, not only for the telling of that story, but maybe, the ideas are more about a world that is more part of nature instead of exploiting nature. You can get pretty deep into this idea of like sustainable practices, but also content and worldview, I think too, which is I think really quite interesting.
Yeah, I think ever since you started talking about sustainability and also gotten Parvati into sustainability too with Heidi, who was her boss at the time.
Parvati, another success story.
Yeah.
Shruti.
And Shruti, yes, and Shruti. I've been being more aware of sustainability in film production in particular. And I was also really shocked at first going on to film production or now sometimes video production, how wasteful it could be. Like at the end of the shoot day, it's just like whatever is not used or used, just everything just goes into the bin and nobody knows where it goes and just kind of out there. And that kind of scares me too. And like you said, it's not only about practices, it's about content. And what I've learned too is that in TV shows and television or in movies, sometimes they would incorporate sustainability practices, not just through their production, but also through their writing, their characters, and the things that these characters say or these characters do that kind of had this subconscious effect on the people watching it. So if a character, let's say, is having a vegan meal, and then it has this psychological effect for the viewer to also want a vegan meal. Yeah. I don't know. I thought it was really interesting.
Totally. Yeah. Or, if you see that character in Ted Lasso with a refillable water bottle, you might, that sort of normalizes that behavior. Or, or again, on Ted Lasso, like the soccer player who's like upset that there's a oil company destroying his, part of his country in Nigeria, I think is where that character's from. And that's not the episode is not all about that. In the case of the oil company, it's a major subplot, but the project, that TV show, Ted Lasso, is about soccer still. And even in soccer, there's things we can talk about because those are humans who have everyday lives, and we all of our lives intersect with this issue. Yeah. And I think that's really cool. Like, what's another show like Abbott Elementary, they have a whole episode about how hot it is, and they're not saying like statistically carbon emissions since the industrial age. Like they're not trying to make you feel guilty or whatever about it. It's just, hey, it's hot, and they kind of like, oh yeah, why is it? I wonder
why. Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah. So. I just kind of want to mention this too, since we're on the topic. We worked on your miniseries called Lunar Estate, and that was, I think, my first sustainable set that I walked on, where everyone brought their reusable water bottles. Everything is not single used. when it comes to the food. We really emphasize on that aspect of it. And at the end of the shoot day, we barely had any trash. We were using aluminum cups instead of the paper or the plastic cups, and it just made everything feel so clean. And it was very impressive, that really eye-opening too, that it was so doable as such a scale, and made me realize that it wasn't a big deal. and Lunar Estate itself is about, looking outer space and owning land on the moon too, which also has this, I feel, this parallel of looking into the future and how we set up for the better future. So I was just wondering, what do you prioritize in sustainability in film production? Because there seems to be so much things to do, but ultimately, comparatively speaking, there's so little resource.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's a lot more to do. It was fun to try, to practice what I'm preaching on the Lunar Estates projects, and it's a web series that's available on YouTube, and I've got lunarestates.net and some other websites that are associated with that, and social media where you can interact with some of the content. But I really wanted to put my money where my mouth was, and make sure that we were as zero waste as we can get, even down to things like carpooling, and can we use people's, not only can we carpool, but can we use, who's got a hybrid? Can we can that person be the carpool person? And on that kind of a small project, it's important. The idea is that it's important to think about how each individual can make a difference, and that's empowering, and that's beautiful, and that's important. There is a criticism of that approach, a valid criticism of that approach, which says, hey, that we can each recycle. That's not going to make as much difference as if the Exxon Corporation or, Chevron or the oil companies, switch from fossil fuels to, renewables. Mm-hmm. And that's true. There are way, way bigger offenders than small webisodes.
Little plastic cups or whatever.
Yeah. But I think that once we all start to make those changes that, are small, it affects, like you were saying about, somebody eating a vegan meal on TV, or a movie, it changes the culture a little bit. And it's not weird composting is sexy, man. Like,
let's bring the drip back. Composting is sexy.
So, I don't know. I guess that's part of the takeaway too, is that I think culture has to evolve and change. And there's a lot more work to do in terms of fuel use. Like, we're still using way too much fossil fuels. That's the biggest piece of the pie in terms of how we can be better about being green. Is that fossil fuel use on film sets, in offices, in transportation, in all industries across the world. So.
Yeah, I've seen those like generators who generate electricity for trailers and film sets. They go crazy. They're on for so many hours a day, and they just run on fossil fuel.
Dude, and they're loud, and
they're loud.
They can be stinky.
I know. Lunar Estate really opened up my eyes of how easy it is really to start from the small things. Or would you say that fossil fuel or stuff like working on sustainability in these kind of small scale production is your priority for now?
It's something I'm really hustling with, for sure. And the Green Film School Alliance that I'm in, we adapted the Sustainable Entertainment Alliance's checklist called Peach into a sort of a student checklist called Peachy that you can get on the greenfilmschoolalliance.com website for free. And it goes through each practice and says, like, how can you be more sustainable in each department, whether it's makeup and wardrobe or construction or using, in the case of using like generators, it's pretty easy now to use to rent, instead of a diesel generator, rent a big battery, which has been charged by either a from a wall socket that's using a larger economy of scale to get more efficient energy use, or you can have it recharge with, solar power or something, And there's a lot of companies that rent those, like VoltStack makes them. There's a company called Saniset Fleet in the Los Angeles area that rents electric vehicles, both cargo and trailers. And also they very kindly donated a power pack unit that comes in a big old Pelican case and has wheels on it, and you can power like lights or your office or Video Village or whatever. You can just run it right off of a big old battery. So yeah, Basecamp can be green with no generators very easily now.
Yeah, and I think tools like Peach or Peachy, I think it's invaluable. Really, it's so easy just to take a look at it and consider doing stuff like this in the future.
There's a lot of other checklists and stuff too, and in the book we get into there's some in Europe and Canada.
Oh, spoiler.
Green. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, there's not. The cool thing for me in writing the book, honestly, was like realizing, hey, we started doing a couple things where I am, but there's a whole bunch of other people out there who are doing this, who are trying to do something similar. And whether it's Green Spark Group in Canada or EcoProd in France or Albert in the UK or Green Film Shooting in, Germany, there's a lot of people who are trying to do this. And film is just one of many industries where people are trying to make changes. And I think that's exciting. And I want to keep that momentum going.
Right, for sure. So what would you say is the one thing that you hope people can get out of this book that you just wrote?
That they have the ability to affect change where they are, whether they are, in makeup department and they're like saving the little eyelash applicators to give to people who use them to clean off birds who are in oil slicks, or whether you are a CEO, who has the power to pick which vendor you're going to use and, pick one with sustainable resources, or whether you are a writer and, just write something about, I don't know, instead of your character filling up with fossil fuels, they're unplugging their electric vehicle from, an electric charger or whatever. Like there's lots of things that we can each do
for sure
in where we live. And that goes beyond the film industry too. If chemistry people and, nurses and everybody has a chance to do something where in the industry where they work.
Yeah, so, for sure. Yeah. Especially for film industry where it is very wasteful.
Yeah.
I follow this. I don't want to say the name because I want to gatekeep this. There's this auction happening in, I think, every month in Burbank. And a lot of their auctions is television and film used props or costumes or set dressing, and after they're used they just have nowhere to go, so they auction it out. Cool. And sometimes if I'm lucky, I can pick up something and then it breathes a new life, and bring it to my own place and then actually use it. I thought that's also like a thrifting kind of idea for
totally
that.
Yeah, there are places like that in New York and in Georgia too. And in we have EcoSet here in Los Angeles that takes donations of used set and like Basecamp gear and gives it a new life. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So before we move on from this little bit, would you please sign this?
Of course, yeah.
Would you please sign? Let me get back to the mic. Would you please sign this for me, Kent?
Oh my gosh, totally.
Right. I mean, where do you usually sign it?
I think the page.
Like this page?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Here you go.
Oh man. Do you want me to say anything in particular?
Surprise me. How about that?
I can't say that you're my favorite student because then all the other students will feel bad.
I think you should say it.
I think I should? Okay.
I think,
all right.
yeah. Not like the favorite, for sure.
I have to learn how to sign these. I haven't really done this too much.
Me too. I mean, whoa. What are you talking about? That's a great signature.
I got the signature.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Sometimes when people, some of my friends want me to sign my CD when I give them to them, and I have a very bad like signature. It's a very boring signature. So it's like I should really like create an autograph for it one of these days. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
This is something that will be on my read list.
Wow.
Excited to read this one. For sure.
I'm honored.
Any war stories? This is a reoccurring segment where I ask all my guests about any war stories when they're working on set or really anything.
Yeah. Boy, there's a lot of war stories I can think of. I can think of war stories of mine. I can think of war stories of students. I can think of, production is like going to war, I guess, in a lot of ways. You're working hard. You've got a team. You've got like an army of people doing things. I don't know. This isn't a war story, but this comes to mind exactly that like sometimes some of the important things that you do are going to be unnoticed. And there's something important about that too, I think. Like, I don't know, I'm just thinking of this one movie I worked on. Tom Cruise was in it, I think. And anyway, this one visual effects person was like really mean. This is the supervisor, and they were really mean.
As usual.
Yes, right. And this person was a yeller, and so I got yelled at a couple of times, and I realized, and I think that was back in the day. This is a long time ago. This is back in the days when I was doing projection. I don't know why I thought of this story, but I was doing projection and projecting dailies. We would look at dailies of like, oh yeah, does Tom Cruise look like he has or whatever other star, do they have a blemish there that we need to digitally, get rid of or whatever? And we would watch the shot over and over and over and over and over. But then the supervisor was yelling at me because they felt that there was also dirt and dust that would sometimes get onto the film. And so, I did some things to try and fix that. And then I also realized that like, oh, you know what? It's actually coming from the editorial workstation. And one day I just went down there and I cleaned up their workstation, dusted it all off and took the alcohol swabs and
take things in your own hands.
And I could have like thrown that person under the bus, but I didn't. I just went and did it, and it solved at least part of the problem. They still yelled for other reasons, but that person was just a yeller.
Where do you think that's coming from? People who yell? Because I've been yelled at too on set. Yeah,
it's not fun to be yelled at.
Yeah.
And, nobody deserves to be yelled at. Yes. I guess there might be some people who mess up.
I just say most people don't deserve.
Most people don't deserve to be yelled at. I think it's because it's a really high stress business. I mean, I had a boss who used to throw chairs and walkie-talkies and stuff, and it was really scary. And, that was the boss, and they weren't going to get fired, but there were a couple of people who quit because of that. And I do feel like that in general, that kind of behavior, you lose respect when you do that. People don't really want to work for you as much.
Right.
I mean, there are some famous, powerful directors who do that and still succeed, but I think they get a bad reputation, or it's easier for people to be less loyal to that person or not do their best, not go out of their way. I guess people do it because it's high pressure. The world of Hollywood is high pressure, but
also very ego-based, I feel like sometimes.
Yeah, it is.
Do you think that culture still persists nowadays, or is it less prominent now? Or
I think it's less accepted, but yeah, I mean, as long as Hollywood, well, like sports too, or any industry, politics, where there's high stakes and where there are personalities who kind of have for lack of a better word, brand, like LeBron James. I mean, I don't know anything about LeBron James, but whatever, a famous person, a famous sports star could maybe, or a famous sports manager could get away with being a jerk because, they have a famous name and that means money.
Right.
So yeah, risking sounding like an idealist. I think there are more important things than money. And if we had a culture that thought about that, and
Right.
and believed that, I think we would have fewer egomaniacs out there.
Yeah, for sure. I think I almost feel like it's a generational thing because my dad is also kind of in the industry. He's more on the commercial side in China, but growing up, he used to tell me all the time how he's always see other people being yelled at, himself being yelled at growing up, and it just seems such like a normal thing back then. And I
Yeah.
think as time passed, I think the culture grew a little bit more aware of that nowadays, that that's actually not very cool, you know?
I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah. I always used to wonder if it was like, you know, leftover behavior from like guys who went through boot camp or something, and like that's the way that they were treated when they were learning, is so that's how other people treated them.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I think that's maybe part of it.
but
It's
yeah,
like, well, I grew up being yelled at.
Right.
So I have the right to yell at whoever.
yeah,
No.
you got to get tough. I mean,
Right.
I mean, that's still true that you need a thick skin, but it goes beyond people being mean.
Yeah, for sure. So now looking back at all that you have done, and for a filmmaker who's very interested and constantly showing everyone how important the past is through your work and your ideology of life too, it seems like you're always looking out for the future as well, whether that's educating the next generation of filmmakers and artists, or talking about sustainability in film production, or even pondering about the idea of owning land in outer space. When everything is said and done, what role do you think you have played in leaving this earth in a better light than you found it, so that the future generation of artists can thrive and fight for the right thing?
Wow, man, that's a big question.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Everybody should be thinking about that question. I mean, you know, I guess you never know until you're dead. And then you don't know because you're dead.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that teaching has helped to pass on some good, you know, some of those values and lessons and an ideology to a certain extent. And I think that there are some students who would say that they learned something from me. There are some that would say that I was not the guy that they wanted. And that's whatever, that's fine too. I've done better jobs some days than others. That's for sure.
That's for everyone's.
That's for everybody. Yeah. And I would hope that at the end of the day, I was able to pass on some good lessons, some that I learned from other people, and some that maybe I don't know, I'm pointing out myself. But I guess, I don't know, as an artist too, I guess I hope that I'm finding topics and stories that are interesting and that make people think. And I think I still have more of those to find, more of those to make.
Well, that sounds great. I think we're all on that trajectory for a lot of the artists, at least, to find on a constant road of finding their voice and what they want their legacy to be, I guess.
And you're never finished either. Like,
Yeah.
you know, I can think of filmmakers who are making films to their last months of life, and painters and authors, and we're lifelong learners, and hopefully we're passing on. Yeah, we're lifelong, I don't know, educators too, I guess.
Yeah. And you are currently working on a essay film, is that right?
Yes.
On, quote, themes ranging from the environmental havoc to the enduring mystery of Bigfoot. That's an intriguing line where I don't know where you're taking this to. So please tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I don't totally know where it's going yet either. So that's what's kind of fun about it. And I think that's a beautiful thing about like stories and art making, is that you can discover some of it as you go, not to be confused with not having a plan or not having a structure and not doing your pre-production. You still have to do all of that stuff, but sometimes while you're writing, you figure out things along the way. And that's kind of where I am now. I'm collecting images and I'm writing. I've been shooting some stuff too. But I think that it's in a way, this essay is going to be related to a lot of the things we just talked about, I don't know, land use and the footprint of humans and the literal footprint of a creature like Sasquatch, and who in some ways is kind of a climate refugee. Whether you believe in that creature or not, I think there's
a metaphor in there.
Yeah. And there's some beautiful all creatures of nature. I think, you know, we're connected to nature in a way that I think that I'm trying to explore. That's the part of the idea. So
Well, I'm excited to see it. Do you know when it might be coming out, or still early to call?
A year or so? I don't know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. So back in 2014, at Unurban Coffee House in Santa Monica, you once said that my films aim to tell big stories through small details. Sometimes I find metaphors in really personal moments. Sometimes in a cutaway shot or some trivial incident. It might be the way someone carries their hand, a spider in a web on a windy day, a child jumping into the sand. You can't make that stuff up. So I just try to stay open to it and figure out how to incorporate it. Do you still find yourself abiding by that philosophy? And if so, do you find yourself still exploring that sentiment in your everyday life and the art that you create?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, I think that's... Wow, geez, man, you had to do some research to find that quote. But yeah, I do. I think I really like the idea of small things that can be metaphorical for bigger things. One of the images that refers to is the shot of this spider in a spider web in the film that I did called Homestead Artifact. And the voiceover is talking about being lonely and the wind blowing. And especially visual metaphors, I think, are super important. And when I'm shooting, I try to look for that kind of stuff. And that's one of the things I guess I'm working on right now, is trying to collect images that have some metaphor like that. And I keep on saying the word metaphor, but I mean, you know, I don't want to sound highfalutin, but like something that reminds you of a bigger thing, a little thing that reminds you of a bigger thing, is,
or the essence of something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of, I mean, I think that's what all filmmaking and photography and art making is about. And hopefully I can keep on doing that with my future projects. David Lynch said, you kind of have to be in the right mindset for that. And for him, meditation is important. Maybe for you, going out in the nature is important, or reading a book or listening to music. But I think when you can open yourself up to that level of awareness, however you do it, that's when you start to notice those connections and those little things that mean big things, the personal that connects to the universal, and the images that transcend and kind of like pull at your heartstrings. So if for David Lynch is about meditation, what would be your thing? I mean, sometimes I've tried meditation, and you know, been successful at it sometimes, but also been, my mind wanders, and because there's a lot of things to think about in the world. But but yeah, I don't know. For me, I guess writing this book, I found that listening to music, especially classical music, really kind of got me into that frame of mind where I could write. Not that this is necessarily like high art or whatever that I'm writing, but finding balance in meditation or in music or in running. People find it in running, runner's high, you know, where you like reach a state where you're kind of like, you know, it's that state of flow. Yeah, right? Rappers talk about that and stuff too, so...
I feel like metaphor seems to be our theme of the day. I have this unfinished puzzle right in front of us that is missing 2 pieces. And I don't know what to do with it. And you said there's a metaphor in it. So I think that's going to be my goal, to find the metaphor out of that.
There you go. Yeah, 2 missing pieces.
Yeah.
Draw your own pieces, man.
Draw my own pieces. I've been thinking about it, but we'll see what happens. So I think we're nearing the end of our episode. Before we do have a lightning round, before we jump into the lightning round, would you please sign this for me too?
What? Get out of here. What? Oh my gosh. Totally.
Here you go. Do you want to describe what I just pulled out?
Oh my gosh. This is like a film that I did when I was in college and the beginning of grad school, called Egg. This is a poster
It's from 1997.
1997 is when I finished making this movie.
It's called Egg, and it's about parenthood, apparently. I can't find it anywhere online.
It's on purpose.
But I found the poster. I think in one of those Cal Arts archives. I found it and I printed it out,
Glenn Nakasako, I believe, is the name of the designer, who I haven't thought of him in years. But, dude, it was fun. It was about, so I shot it all in Madison, Wisconsin, and, a couple other places, too, including a little bit of California. And, it's all about this couple who unexpectedly give birth to an egg, and it has mysterious alien origins.
Love to see it.
Maybe I'll put it up online.
Yes, please.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious. Yeah, dude, I'll sign that for you. Jeez. All right, I guess I don't know. Wow. Yeah, I love the design of this poster. The poster might be better than the movie, but...
Posters in the back in the days are better. I'm not going to lie. Posters nowadays are just floating heads. What are we doing here? Thank you so much.
Sure.
Yeah, this is beautiful. Yes, please send me a copy of the movie. I want to see it. And also the Homestead Artifacts. I really want to see that one too. Okay, let's jump into the lightning round. Are you ready?
Round. Okay.
Yes, lightning round. I just want you to say something. Don't think too much about it.
Okay.
Let's go. So, if you could own a piece of land on any other planet besides the moon, which one would it be and why?
Oh, man. Okay, not thinking too hard. I guess I'd say Mars, just because it's so, meaningful and important in our culture. And, and it's the red planet, man.
Right, it's the most Earth-like planet out there. Yeah. Which character do you have more fun impersonating, Tiger King or the brothers in The Curse of Oak Island?
Man, wow, you did research. Tiger King's got a more fun voice, but I do like those Oak Island, northern Michigan accents.
Right. We gotta dig up some more husk or whatever they're talking about.
Oh, look at this wood. Hey, there's some wood over here. Oh, smell that.
Do you want to do a Tiger King right now? Do you still remember?
I can't even remember what Tiger King says. Hey, man, I can't do it.
Doesn't work without the beard.
Yeah.
It doesn't work without the beard. One of your favorite films and why? Just pick one.
Okay, one film that is a favorite. I'll just pick. I'll pick a weird one that nobody's seen in this audience. One Way Boogie Woogie by James Benning. It's like a bunch of little sort of micro narrative type shots, and it's experimental.
It's a documentary.
Kinda, yeah. It's experimental. Yeah, documentary.
27 years later.
Yeah,
that's what it's called.
He did another one called. He's done. There's a revisiting of that. There's another one called North on Evers that he did. That's sort of like a diary of a motorcycle trip.
Well, guys, check it out. That's your film rec of the day. Yeah. One of your favorite filmmakers, doesn't have to be a director.
I do love two names that I've said on this podcast interview already. Mira Nair is awesome. I love David Lynch. I don't love everything he's done, but I like his process. Sergio Leone, because old school like westerns that have really like lots of stylistic quirkiness. Love that. I could go on listing them, but one more. Sure, I'll give you another one. I'll give you another weird one. I feel like part of my mission as a teacher is to give weird ones that people haven't necessarily seen. Gene Dealman is a good one by Chantal Akerman.
The potato movie. That's what I like to call it.
That's it. Yeah. 15 minutes peeling potatoes.
Right.
I hate when I saw it for the first time, I hated it. But I think it's really interesting now.
Yeah, I gave that movie like a overcooked 5 potato out of 5.
But you still remember it now.
I know, it stuck with me. I mean, yeah. It's a classic for a reason, I think.
Yeah.
What's the most challenging part of teaching film production?
Well, in a way, I guess it's the same thing that's the most challenging about being on set, which is dealing with people. I learn a lot from my students all the time, but there's also interpersonal conflict between students, between me and students, between students and other outside forces. So yeah, dealing with people, that's the challenging part.
For sure. Mm-hmm. If you could give one single piece of advice to your past self, what would it be?
I don't know, you're going to be okay. Work hard and persevere. Yeah, follow your instincts, I think. Trust your instincts.
Love that. What's the most rewarding thing about being a teacher?
Most rewarding thing about being a teacher is if there's a moment when I talk about something that I'm excited about, and then I can look out at a student and see that they're getting excited about it too. Like watching the light bulb go off that's pretty cool.
That's cool. What's a secret pet peeve of yours when watching student films?
Oh, I don't know. I don't want to bad talk anybody's.
We're here for tea. Where's the gossip?
I guess, well, the first thing that comes to mind is like unnecessary dialogue. People saying like, yeah, really? Or like, huh? Like that gets me, yeah. When characters say, huh, or make sighs like that, or unnecessarily
like too much.
Yeah, yeah.
Too much.
And it's not. Sometimes it's in the writing on the page. Sometimes it's in the acting. Sometimes it's in the directing. Sometimes it's in the editing. So, but yeah, that's a pet peeve of mine.
That's good. That's good. Does AI have a place in the future of filmmaking?
Yeah, totally.
What would it be?
Well, I mean, I would love to have AI help me write grant proposals. I would love to have AI help me do things like sync dailies or repetitive things that are a pain. I know that it has a future in putting in what we're thinking about these days is putting people out of work. But I think there's, besides replacing like matte painting artists or sound designers or whatever, like I think there's a lot of ways that we can use AI to as a tool for filmmakers to make our lives easier and to make more work for ourselves.
Yeah, that's another way of looking into the future. Yeah. Biggest fear?
I guess every time I make a film, my biggest fear is that people aren't going to get it, or it's not going to be good enough, or fear of failure, maybe. Yeah, failure.
This one I've been wondering for a while now. Why the octopus car?
I've got these octopus stickers on my car.
Yeah.
Like tentacles that come up from the bottom. Just we got this used car, and my son and I were like, we should do something weird and cool with this. Like, should we put flames on it? And we looked up like flame decals, and they're, some of those just look kind of like dumb and macho. And then we saw these weird tentacles, and we said, oh man, that's perfect. That's hilarious. So
that's where it came from.
That's where it came from.
I see. Now I got my answers. Are tennis balls green or yellow?
Green. They're green.
They are green. They are green. Favorite podcast, and why is it this one?
Yes. I also like an awesome podcast called Bigfoot and Beyond with Cliff and Bobo, and another one called JFK, The Enduring Mystery. So
I like that one. Isn't that a video?
Might be. I don't know.
Okay, you're here to hear. That's the last one. That's the end of the lightning round. To wrap up this episode, any last words, any recommendation, anything you've seen, anything you've heard, anything you've done that you want to recommend to the listeners out there?
Yes. Okay, I will recommend a book and a food. If you like science fiction, there's a book called Ministry for the Future. It's a little bit about climate change and the future. It's kind of a cool one. And a food, well, now I've said it, now I have to think of one. Well, I would just say something you've never tried before. Go have something you've never eaten. It's great from your culture, from your parents' culture, from your, whether it's time or geography. Try something you've never tried before.
Yes. I'm a food lover here. Always trying new stuff. Well, that's the episode. Thank you so much for
oh my gosh, that's so fun.
You've been a really good guest. I hope you had fun talking about your book. Anything you want to plug and at the end?
Green film. If you have green filmmaking if you have people who are interested in film and interested in eco sustainability, yeah, green filmmaking, check it out at rutledge.com. Otherwise, yeah, just, keep on keeping on, people. Thanks for the opportunity, Howard.
Of course. Thank you for being here. Any, is there audiobook version?
I don't know. Not yet. Maybe I should do a reading. I was thinking about doing a reading at a book opening. I'll let you know.
Yes,
Let
me know. I'll go. Well, that's the episode, guys. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you on the next one.
All right.
Bye,
thanks.
guys.
Bye.
Bye. Yay. We're out.
Oh my gosh.
Yay.
That was fun.
Comment mark second sticks. Okay.
So you've got these two vocal mics, and then you've got, is that like a...
That's a scratch audio. So if these guys somehow fail, I have something at least.
Oh, okay.
It's not the best quality, but I got something.
And you could sync with it if you want to, or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's kind of what it's for. All right. Cool. Ready?
Yeah.
All right. Let's move on. Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Fire away.
Let's do it.